Hello everyone and welcome to day number 2 of the Highway to Heaven tournament. The first group is at the gate, so let's meet them. The Speed Slayer, Hershey's is here, Nissan and a fat fender. That's an interesting choice, honestly. Not a car I often see in races like these. It doesn't seem like the most aerodynamic, but I could be proven wrong. We've certainly had our fair share of surprises in this and previous tournaments before, so I wouldn't be too surprised if something came out of nowhere for that car. Right now, though, the Hershey's is out in front, and despite its name, the Speed Slayer is way in the back. The Hershey's does finish with a 13.44. Very respectable. I believe our fastest time so far is a 13.16, so they still have some work to do. And the Nissan kind of spun out of control at the end. Hopefully they're okay. It seems like they are, so we'll begin Heat 2 here in a second. Now let's see if Heat 2 can do anything for the Speed Slayer, because so far they're the ones getting slayed here, so if they want to keep that name, they might want to pick up the pace a little bit. Right now they're kind of struggling to do that as the Hershey and the Nissan take off. Going into the second turn, they seem to actually get really loose for a second, and the Nissan stops. The Fat Fender is taking full advantage of this as well as the Speed Slayer. The Hershey is still moving. I can't say that much for the Nissan though. Once again, we've seen some surprising twists and turns, and this just adds to it. Did the Nissan ever end up getting around that corner? No. They got stuck. I honestly thought the Hershey was going to get stuck there for a second because it looked like they popped loose for a second. But it's the Nissan that does not finish. That being said, though, the Fat Bender does finish with a 14.4. Not exactly where you want to be if you want to stay consistent. Going into the second half of the races with this group, we have already seen perfect examples of those wide turns being an absolute killer, so to speak, for some of our racers. Even in the Highway to Hell tournament, there were some fast cars, but once they got into that wide turn, they would lose so much speed and fall so far behind. Right now, that's not so much the case for the Hershey, though, as they took that wide turn, hold on to a decent-sized lead here. They're kind of swerving a little bit, but they managed to finish with a 13.52. And once again, despite the name, our speedy friend is actually not so speedy. At least compared to the other three here. Not very good for them. So going into this final race now, the Hershey vehicle has already stamped their spot in the final round of this video. But the other three still all technically have a shot at joining them. Right now the greatest odds go to the Fat Bender. But the Nissan is not too far behind him, and then the Speed Slayer is not too far behind them. At this point, though, it looks like it's going to be the Fat Bender, though, because even if they don't finish in first, if they finish in front of the other two, it's guaranteed, and they do. Meanwhile, the other three finish close together, not quite sure at first glance who finished in front of the other one. But the Hershey vehicle is putting up some pretty promising times overall. And that's going to help them as they approach the final round today. Alright, our second group is ready. Let's see who they are. Oh, we got some more guest appearances. First off, we have a Jeepster and a Porsche. But Star Wars and DC have made a return in the tournament here, as a TIE Fighter has been turned into a car. And it seems like Batman heard that Superman was here and decided to join him in this tournament. Now, Superman has already moved on to the latter part of the tournament overall, and I'm sure Batman would like to join him. Right now, it's the TIE Fighter, though, that is out in front, and once again, we're going to make sure that they don't have any special modifications to improve their odds of finishing. It looks like we have one car slowly making its way towards the finish. Are they going to make it? No, they stopped just short. That could be one of the most painful things I've ever seen, where they're ever so slowly inching towards the finish and then just stop short of it. Meanwhile, the other 3 racers did finish, so that's going to help them. But this poor soul back here, that was painful to watch. I can only imagine what they're experiencing right now. So it's the TIE Fighter and the Batman vehicle at the best advantage right now. Race number 2, here we go! Already, the TIE Fighter and Batman are taking a decent-sized lead. It could be the way those vehicles are built. You could have some of the fastest vehicles in the world, but if the aerodynamics are not very good, you could be losing a lot of that speed that you would have otherwise. Right now, though, it's Batman that's out in front, overtaking the TIE Fighter. He approaches the finish line, does a little spin backwards to make sure that no one's behind him, and he ultimately takes the win. The Porsche and the Jeepster are the ones struggling a little bit. That could be because Batman and whoever's piloting that TIE Fighter have had a lot of experience piloting high-speed vehicles before. So if that's the case, the Jeepster and the Porsche could very much be in trouble. Approaching heat number 3 now, Batman and the TIE Fighter have so far been going back and forth. The Porsche was keeping up with them a little bit in that last race, but once they got towards the latter half of the course, they quickly were falling behind. And they're already doing that here, as the TIE Fighter is trying to stay in front of Batman this time. Batman's trying to overtake him. They do have 1 or 2 more turns to have a chance to do that, but they're unable to, and the TIE Fighter wins this time with Batman in second. Porsche finishes in third again, and the Jeepster once again in last. Now the TIE Fighter finishes with a 13.45. That's once again very good. Not the fastest time, but we've seen so far that anything below 13.5 seconds is very promising for the future. Going into this last race, the TIE Fighter is already guaranteed to be in the final round, and Batman is pretty much set. The Porsche technically does have an outside shot to overtake Batman, but they would need to beat him and then beat him again in a tiebreaker. But given what we've seen from the Porsche so far, it looks like that may not happen. They are trying to keep up with the other two, but it looks like it'll be all for naught. As the TIE Fighter wins again, Batman in second, Porsche actually right behind him. So a valiant effort to at least make something happen. But at this point it was too late, and it'll be the TIE Fighter and Batman moving on to the final round. Valiant effort by the Porsche and the Jeepster, maybe next time. So here we go into the finals now. So we actually have a little bit of a deja vu type of thing going on here. Because in the last day of the race, we had a Star Wars vehicle and a DC vehicle together. It was the Millennium Falcon and Superman doing that. And Superman was trying his hardest to beat the Millennium Falcon, maybe not just because they of course want to win overall, but DC seems to be one of the few things that Disney doesn't really own yet. And I'm sure Batman doesn't want to be owned by Disney either. But right now, the TIE Fighter takes the first win. And it was a 13.49 as well, which is pretty good. They're keeping relatively consistent with those 13.4s. Let's see if they can do that in the other 3 races. Heat number 2 now. Batman and TIE Fighter do seem to have this rivalry going on right now. Batman has beaten him before. He's just got to make sure he does that again in order to keep his odds of moving on alive to join Superman later on in this tournament. Right now, though, it's the Hershey vehicle that's actually out in front here. Are they going to be able to hold on to it, though? Going into that final turn, it looks like they will. The TIE Fighter did try to catch them at the last second, but was ultimately unable to. And the Fatbender did try to take out Batman, but also was unable to. So that was actually a surprising turn of events. Let's see if the Hershey vehicle can keep that up for now. So at this point, I honestly thought it was guaranteed to be either TIE Fighter or Batman. But that Hershey winning the race kind of threw a wrench into the mix, because now I'm not sure if it's ultimately going to be one of them, if the Hershey can stay consistent. And all four racers are actually staying relatively close together this time, with the TIE Fighter having a bit of an edge over the other three, Batman trying to keep the other two behind him, and the TIE Fighter wins again, and the Hershey in third this time. Now, I'm pretty sure so far the Hershey vehicle has finished in a different spot every race so far in these finals. If they finished in second next time, that would be absolutely incredible. So normally at this point, I would say it's a fight for second place, because Batman and the Hershey vehicle are tied. But at this point, this is the finals. This is ultimately a fight for first place, which the TIE Fighter is almost too comfortably holding on to. If they can finish in front of both Batman and the Hershey vehicle, that's a guaranteed spot on the roster alongside Superman. So far, though, they are nowhere to be found. They finished in third, actually. And Batman finished in first. I don't know if that's going to be enough, though. We'll have to see. No, it's ultimately the TIE Fighter still moving on. Valiant effort by Batman. And the Hershey did finish in second, so they finished in a different spot in every race. Congratulations to the TIE Fighter. See you all next time.